The Ain't No Fang Podcast. From Arizona Sports, Ain't No Fang.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into Ain't No Fang, Arizona Sports Diamondbacks podcast, coming to you on a Thursday, the Diamondbacks off day. My name is Alex Weiner. Today, Jesse Borek from MLB Pipeline will be joining the show to talk about the Arizona Fall League. The rosters just dropped. The league will start up here in less than a month. And so it's, getting time to kind of review who's going. We'll talk about some of the prospects from the Diamondbacks who are going. There are 8 players in total that Arizona is sending, including Drey Jameson, who's an interesting one, and we'll get into that later. But before we talk prospects, just because it's an off day, and so it's a good time to kind of take stock on where the Diamondbacks stand now that they only have 15 games left remaining in the regular season. They are coming off of a series loss. They dropped 2 out of 3 against the San Francisco Giants. However, despite losing 2 games in San Francisco, they've actually made up ground on the third wildcard team right now in the National League, which is the New York Mets, because the Mets are kind of in a free fall right now. The Mets have lost 5 games in a row. They do play today, so by the time this is up, the game will probably be in motion, and we'll see what happens. But because the Diamondbacks made up ground on them, the Diamondbacks entered Thursday 3.5 games back. So they'll either be 3 games back or 4 games back when they play on Friday. The Diamondbacks are in Minnesota, and they're going to be taking on the Twins this weekend. And so it's still kind of a cluster right now for that third wildcard spot, because the Mets have basically left the door open for this group of teams that are all hovering around 500, and you would think would have too much of a hill to overcome to get back in there. No, because the Mets have not really done much winning in the last few weeks. So because of that, the Mets at 76 and 70 are the third wildcard team. Right behind them at 74 and 72 are both the San Francisco Giants and the Cincinnati Reds. The Diamondbacks are 3.5 games back at 73 and 74. Again, staying above 500 has been a bit elusive for the Diamondbacks at this point. This will be a good opportunity in Minnesota. And then the St. Louis Cardinals are behind Arizona at 72 and 75. They are 4.5 games back. So what does this mean for the playoff odds for the Diamondbacks? It's still pretty slim. You look at Baseball Reference, has them right around 8%, which is, at least something. It's better than Fangraphs that has them below 2%, and Baseball Prospectus, which basically has them at 0. But the way that this all maps out, the Diamondbacks are going to have to beat good teams down the stretch. It just is what it is. They have 3 against the Minnesota Twins, who are not a good team, who sold a lot at the trade deadline. Yohan Duran, their closer, Carlos Correa, their shortstop, they sold a lot at the trade deadline, and yet the Diamondbacks are catching them at the wrong part of the rotation, because it's going to be Pablo Lopez, who has a sub-3 ERA this year, came back from injury recently. He's going to be pitching in the opener. And then it'll be Joe Ryan, who was an all-star this year, who a lot of people thought was going to get traded. He stuck around. He's going to be pitching on Saturday. So it'll be Brandon Pfaadt against Pablo Lopez. It'll be Ryan Nelson against Joe Ryan. And then it will be Nabil Crismat, currently lined up in the finale against Bailey Ober. Diamondbacks after that, they got the Giants, the Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Padres. That's not easy. It's not easy for the Cardinals either, who have the Brewers, the Reds, the Brewers again, the Giants, and the Cubs. The Giants have the Dodgers 7 more times. They also have the Rockies, but as the Diamondbacks, it's not necessarily a gimme, all the time at least. And then the Mets probably have the lighter schedule of that group of teams, they have the Rangers and the Padres, which is difficult. Then they have the Nationals, the Cubs, and the Marlins. And just to round that out, the Reds have the Athletics, the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Brewers. Obviously, what those teams look like in the final weekend of the series, depending on who has what to play for, is going to be a factor, as are tiebreakers. And so just a kind of quick overview of where the tiebreaker situation is right now with the Diamondbacks. It's not too favorable with the Giants. They are 5-5 against each other, and they play each other next week. So that series is going to be for the season series, which might become important. With the Reds have the tiebreaker in a head-to-head record against the Diamondbacks. And then the D-backs went 3-3 against the Cardinals and the Mets this season. And so the next tiebreaker is record within your own division, and right now it's too close to call for which one of those teams has the upper hand of the other. And of course there's a lot of other, like, what if it's a 3-way tie, what if it's a 4-way tie? We have all that stuff on arizonasports.com on our Diamondbacks section there. So Diamondbacks They salvage. They don't get swept by the Giants. They win that last game. They played a really, really good game. Good, way to get a lead early. Good offense early. Eduardo Rodriguez, 3 straight really good outings of 6+ innings and 1 or fewer earned runs. The defense, Blaze Alexander keeps making spectacular play after spectacular play. Doesn't seem to matter where they put him. Tim Tawa looking good over at first base. The one kind of glaring issue with that game was the fact that Ketel Marte left with a right foot contusion, fouled the ball off of his foot. He left around in the 7th inning. Troy Lavello told Todd Walsh on the TV broadcast after the game that the X-rays were negative for Ketel. So we'll see what happens, and they manage that. But right now, there's no room for error for the Diamondbacks if they want to stay in this thing. Playing competitive baseball was the goal, and that's where they're at right now. And so they got to keep pushing. So with that, we'll get to our conversation with Jesse Borek from MLB Pipeline to talk about Fall League and some of his predictions for how the end of the season is going to wrap up. All right, joining the pod is Jesse Borek from MLB Pipeline. Jesse, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Alex. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. I was like, all right, the Fall League rosters came out. Fall League starts up in less than a month, and we have some interesting names to talk about. So why not get, somebody from MLB Pipeline? And we've talked in the press box for a few years now, so I thought this was a good opportunity to bring you on. And Fall League, the rosters are dropped, and it's going to be 8 Diamondbacks players going towards the Salt River Rafters, and the 8 are Calumet, Yordan Chalice, David Hageman, Jacob Steinmetz, Kenny Castillo, Hansel Luis, Jack Hurley, and then kind of a wild card, but Drey Jameson is also on this roster. So I'm going to put Jameson off to the side to start off. We'll get to him in a second. Which one of those 7 prospects interests you in this league when you're looking at the roster?
Yeah, like you said, the other day was when the list was released. It's one of my favorite days of the year because I immediately love to sprint through and check out everybody in the league, and then immediately I forget who is coming. Like there'll be like a couple names that I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that guy. But I'll do the very quick. It's like a kid on Christmas. I like rip open the packs, and I'm just like, oh, what did we get? What did we get? And then you and I were talking yesterday about doing this, and I was like, I got to go back over who the D-backs are bringing. And so when I went back through, the name that really stuck out to me was David Hageman, a guy that came over, of course, at the trade deadline and that Merrill Kelly deal from the Texas Rangers. That was the first name that really jumped off the page in terms of I was like, all right, like the Fall League is going to be a really big proving ground for him, which is what it's turned into for a lot of pitchers nowadays. It's a chance to get innings and a chance to do it against elevated competition. And I think Hageman's the guy of that block of 7 that you mentioned that I think is most interesting.
Totally agree. Only 42 innings pitched this season because obviously he's coming off of Tommy John surgery when he got drafted last year. And for that reason, because of the lack of workload, I think he was a little bit underrated when you look at the package that the Diamondbacks got for Merrill Kelly. It was Cole Drake, it was Mitch Bratt, and then it was David Hageman. And so far, it's been really good. He's made 5 starts for High A Hillsboro, 3.15 ERA. He's got 27 strikeouts and only 4 walks in 20 innings pitched. And so it's only 5 starts. This is going to be an interesting kind of, as you mentioned, just kind of a showcase for him to go out against some good competition and just keep building up a workload. But so far, it seems like a pretty sneaky addition for this Diamondbacks crew, albeit we know it's still in the lower minors.
Yeah, I think that happens sometimes, but you look at it and you go, it's just High A. But I think what's really interesting is you're seeing it across the minors. Like as somebody who watches way too much minor league baseball on a day-to-day basis,
that's why you're here.
I can attest. I can attest to the fact that I think sometimes when you're talking about college arms, right? College players in particular, just because they're at the lower minor leagues, they're often better than most of the competition that they're getting a chance against. There will be younger kids in there for sure, or kids that are getting development. But I think some kids that come from a major program, and Hageman comes from West Virginia, very good team that season. I think kids like that sometimes are a little bit ahead of the learning curve. And I think once they kind of find their rhythm, and in Hageman's case, his stuff, I think they can move pretty quick. You mentioned those outings with Hillsboro, 27 Ks, 4 walks. He looks great. The thing to me that's really exciting about him, the delivery looks really, really clean. Like if you watch all of his starts back, he's kind of got this like Matt Cain look to his profile. Diamondbacks fans remember Matt Cain a lot during his time with the Giants when he was terrorizing the National League West. Hageman's a really exciting guy in terms of kind of that pitchability. The curveball has got great depth now. He kind of mixes in with that heater. Whether or not he can stick as a starter, it's going to be that third pitch. And I think that's what will be really interesting here during the fall league, is getting to see how those other pitches operate. And the beautiful thing is, he, like you said, he's pitching for Salt River. So we'll have access to StatCast technology the whole time.
That's super underrated part of this whole thing, right? And it's an advantage for Diamondbacks, but also Diamondbacks fans, to kind of keep an eye on some of the guys who are pitching in the fall league, is that, at their home ballpark, they're going to have access to a lot more data than, several others. So that'll be really cool with him. And another pitcher who I'm looking forward to seeing that is going to be Yordan Chalice, because he was a guy who's kind of a quick riser up, prospect leaderboards and stuff like that heading into the season. He was great down the stretch last year in his first, real opportunity stateside. And they try to make him a starter to start this season. Obvious growing pains. He's back in the bullpen now in Amarillo, but is a guy who has a really electric fastball and a potential plus slider. What can you tell me about Yordan and what fans could probably look out for when he's coming here to the fall league?
Yeah, I got my first extended look, I guess, at Chalice during the spring breakout game back in March when he was there for the D-backs when they played against the Royals. I got to call that game on MLB Network. And that was a guy you almost you hear people say sometimes you sat up on the edge of your seat and you're like, who's that guy? and I think everybody kind of felt that way about Chalice. And I was really excited this year to see what his stuff could look like as a starter. And if you can kind of corral that wild horse nature that he had coming out of the bullpen, coming at you with all these arms and legs, and like you mentioned, the big power fastball, that nasty slider. And if you could kind of hone that in over multiple innings, and I don't really think they got a great read on it this year. I think they saw it and, maybe that is the case, that he is going to be a bullpen arm in the long term. I'm really interested to see how they deploy him. He might be a multi-inning guy for Salt River. I know that's something year after year. Teams are always afraid in the fall league of not having enough innings to cover. But Chalice, he's going to be a guy, whether he's a one-inning guy, two-inning guy. I want to see how he's going to get deployed here in the fall league. I think that'll tell us a lot about how the D-backs view him going into 2026.
I would imagine he's no longer stretched out just because now he's been working kind of in relief. So I would imagine so. I think going into spring training, kind of what they see as his outlook going into 2026 is super interesting, where he ends up landing. He's up again. He started the year in Hillsborough. He's up in Amarillo, so he's going to pitch in some playoff games, ideally. So that might be a cool experience there. The other guy I wanted to highlight was just Kyle Ament, because he would have been in the major leagues more than likely had he not gotten hurt this year. As somebody who started in AAA, was in major league camp, kind of a funky delivery, but not in the way that we've seen a lot of Diamondbacks youngsters come up and throw sidearm, Kyle Backus or Andrew Sofrank from the left side in the 3/4. He's way over the top, kind of like a Josh Colementor type. And he had a shoulder injury and it basically knocked him out for, until the end of August. But he's already been in the fall league. He did it last year. And this is a guy who, with Drey Jameson, are the two guys you could legitimately see pitching innings for them out of relief next season. And I think for that reason, that's a guy to watch potentially this fall when you're kind of mapping out, okay, who's going to pitch in what roles and who's going to be competing for roles in the 2026 Diamondbacks bullpen.
Yeah, you mentioned he was there last year, and he just at times looks like he was overwhelming a lot of guys, because their teams will tend to send younger players now. I know in the past it was, baseball's finishing school, and it was guys you were guaranteed to almost see next year in the big leagues. But I think you're exactly right, Alex, in this case with Ahmed, this is his final audition. I could very easily see him starting 2026 in the big league bullpen, for sure. He's multiple strikeouts in 4 of his 5 outings since returning for Reno. So he's going to be able to finish the year here down with Reno down the stretch, bring that over to the Arizona Fall League. And you mentioned kind of that funky over-the-top look, and it kind of looks like Pete Fairbanks a lot. Now I'm throwing out comparisons here all over the place for guys' deliveries.
I like the Matt Cain one. Matt Cain one was pretty good.
Yeah. So in the case of Ahmed, he's got this nasty backwards curveball that people have seen before. It's almost like a screwball, the motion that it has. And I talked to him last year at the Fall League, and I said, where does that come from, man? At what point were you let me get up here and do this? And he said, well, when he went to community college in Iowa, he showed up and he just threw a fastball. Right. All right. That makes sense. Right. You're probably good enough in high school. You just throw a fastball. He's like, I didn't throw anything else. And they told me that I wasn't going to pitch unless I learn to throw a curveball. And he said, so I just started watching Clayton Kershaw and Adam Wainwright videos on how they threw their curveball. And he said, and then I found myself looking in the mirror and I was up here. And he's like, and I just threw it in games and guys couldn't hit it. So like if stories like that are so cool in terms of, I mean, hey, those are two pretty good guys to learn a curveball from, I think. And then you just apply that to game action, and next thing you know, it works. And here he is knocking on the door of the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, one of those like just trial by fire, if it works, then he's made it up this far. And so he'll be kind of interesting as we kind of preview what the 2026 Diamondbacks looks like. That's kind of a good way to do it. And as I buried the lead, because the most interesting name, in my opinion, on this list was the fact that we're seeing Drey Jameson, who's 28, who has major league service time and has just not been able to stay healthy for the Diamondbacks last few years. He's going to get an opportunity to get back on the bump. And that's super interesting because this year was supposed to be his comeback season. He missed all of last year recovering from Tommy John surgery. He pitched in the Cactus League, and he said at the time that his first Cactus League game after surgery was better than his major league debut because he kind of proved to himself that, okay, I'm back. I can still throw 98 to 100 miles an hour. The slider was working, and so it's like, all right, here we are. And he threw 14 minor league innings and 3 major league innings this year before there was an issue with his elbow. There was a loose body, and it was, not necessarily related to the surgery, but it was another problem in there that kept him out. What do you think of the opportunity that he has to just get back out there and pitch at all during this fall league season, and what could that look like?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, he's one of those guys that I'm most looking forward to talking to, just because I think there's great stories all across the fall league. And, we'll be covering that over at MLB Pipeline, just beyond the stats and, how they impact big league rosters. These games are really important for guys in a lot of ways. And Drey is somebody, as you mentioned, Alex, he's looking to get back into action. And this is where guys come to get that game speed. It's kind of your chance to end the season. If you're not going to go down and play winter ball in, Venezuela or Puerto Rico, the Dominican, you're not going to play winter ball there. You can come to Arizona, and it makes a lot of sense for him. He can stay with the training staff. As you mentioned, he's playing for Salt River, so you play in front of your own complex. I'm sure he's able to just do his regular routine. I doubt they're going to do anything too wild with him in terms of he won't pitch a back-to-back. He won't be doing multi-inning outings, I'm sure. So they'll kind of keep the kitty gloves on him a little bit, but it's going to be really exciting for him to kind of set the stage for next season, where hopefully once he's beyond all these injuries, we can start to see what he is as a major league pitcher.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Straying away from the fall league, because we're getting towards the end here of the minor league season. The lower minors are done. We're getting towards playoff time in the upper minors. What have been a couple of your favorite storylines from the Diamondbacks system this season? Whether it's a breakout, somebody doing something interesting in a single game, what kind of stands out to you there?
That's really interesting. For me, across the board, I think I always look at it from a prospect perspective, in terms of, where guys have kind of broken out. And 2 guys stick out to me. I think J.D. Dix, who was one of their early selections in last year's draft, he went to the Arizona Complex League, and he just dominated as a Wisconsin high schooler, right? Like you think, oh man, this kid's coming from a cold weather environment. It's gonna take him a little while against some of this competition. You get in that league, you get a lot of guys that were stars in the Dominican Summer League and are coming stateside for the first time. So you're playing the best of the best from Latin America. And he went in there and he just looked like a man amongst boys. And then they sent him to Visalia to finish the year, and he looked excellent at second base. I mean, he looked like a premium defender at that position. His swing looked really good. He looked like he was in great shape for an 18, 19-year-old. So I think J.D. Dix having a breakout year was my highlight of the D-backs lower minor leagues. And I would say for the uppers, talked about this the other day a little bit on the D-backs broadcast, but I just couldn't be more impressed with Ryan Waldschmidt. We talked about it earlier on this segment in terms of college kids coming into the minor league system and then running up the ladder, just showing that they're better than the level they're at. And I think the thing for Waldschmidt is he's produced everywhere he's gone, whether it was the high school circuit, the Cape Cod League, the SEC. He's come to the D-backs minor league system and just mashed the baseball everywhere he's been. And guys that are multi-time all-stars in the big leagues, go back and look at their minor league numbers, and they do the same thing that Ryan Waldschmidt's been doing in the minor leagues. People will say, the run tool, or is he going to stick in center? Or I assure you that, like, if he is a 300 hitter with 35 homers from left field, you'll find a spot for him, right? Like, I think most teams will take that guy. And the Lourdes Gurriel injury is really interesting to me in terms of what are the D-backs going to do about a right-handed hitting power bat in the middle of their order in 2026. Waldschmidt has not yet played at AAA, but he just destroyed the Texas League last month. As you mentioned, he's going to have a chance to play in the postseason for AA Amarillo. So really interested to see, could he get his major league debut in the first half of 2026? I think he's put that on the radar just by not being just good, this kid's good for his level, by being the best player in his entire league now for running on about 5 months.
Some guys just know how to hit, and for him, it's not only the hit tool, but just his ability to work at bats. Even the fact that he's playing center field, like even if he doesn't stick in center field, but the fact that they have the confidence to put him out there, and from all I've heard, has done pretty well for himself out there. Yes, it's been a terrific year for him. I mean, he got his feet wet in Visalia after the draft last year, so he worked his way up to Hillsborough, up to Amarillo, and he's in a group of guys that I think Tommy Troy is in, that maybe Cole Drake is in, that Kyle Ament may be in, who are kind of going to be knocking on the door to make their major league debuts at some point next season. So, I would say that Ryan Waldschmidt, and besides just getting the list up right now, Ryan Waldschmidt is now the number one prospect in the Diamondbacks farm system, according to MLB Pipeline, because Jordan Lawler has graduated prospect status at this point. So that's the number one guy, followed by Sid Caldwell and then Kason Cunningham. So it's their first round picks over the last couple of years. All right, Jesse, I'm going to hit you with the big one.
Okay.
Who's making it out? Who's going to be the third wild card team in the National League this year between this just cluster of teams that it's like, I don't know. Can the Mets hold on? Can they not? Who's going to take it? Who's going to be the third wild card team?
I think the Mets are going to hang on. That if you make me put my stamp on it, and I'll say this, as to why. I got to watch Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, all of this season down at various levels of the minor leagues. Jonah Tong threw a perfect game earlier this year for AA Binghamton, the first one in the minors since 2018 in affiliate ball. And I don't know how people hit these guys, right? And like we love to do over at Pipeline, like grades on things and, grade their fastball or grade their control or grade whatever. Just watching them, it was stunning that no one really hit Jonah Tong, honestly, anywhere in the minors. And then coming up to the big leagues, to see their stuff play against major leaguers, that goes to what I said earlier of like, sometimes when you've got it, like you've just got lightning in a bottle, and these players that are coming out now, these kids, it's the talent discrepancy between AA and the big leagues, like sometimes can be a little bit more clustered than you think. Like if you're able to translate those skills at that level, there's a chance that you can do it also at the big league level in short order.
There we go. Okay,
so I'm going with the Mets. That's my answer. I'm going with the Mets. I'm sorry, D-backs.
You're going with the Mets to hold on. Okay. Because it's getting a little dicey for the New York Mets.
Yeah, it's gonna. Sure. Every time you look at it, like it's like you and I talk all the time about it. We're like, you look at the standings and you do the eyes emoji, and you're like, I don't know. It
depends on the week. Right now, it's like the Giants are getting kind of close, but also the Reds are getting kind of close, but the Diamondbacks are not that far. So it's going to be one of those. We just asked that the last week of the season, all of these teams are still alive, so that we just get this absolute bonanza of
we need
baseball.
One of those days. What was that? 2011, right? That like historic day when like everybody, all those teams were fighting, like the Braves, and I remember there was like a Red Sox Orioles game. Papelbon blew a save or something, right? Like that was
Longoria's
like
walk-off?
Crazy historic day. Yes, that was also Longoria's. I think it was like Daniel Johnson for the Rays hit like a game-tying pinch hit homer off like Mariano.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just like a totally useless game. Yeah. That's what goes on in my brain. That's the kind of recall that I have in my brain.
The potential is there because all these teams have been pretty mediocre for a lot of the season, and so now they're kind of coming to a head where who's going to get hot at the right time.
The third wild card. That's the beauty of it, right? And I think this is fun, and I think it's kind of like catching lightning in a bottle. And then the D-backs a couple years ago, they caught lightning in a bottle right before the postseason, and they found themselves in the World Series. So I mean that's the fun of September baseball.
You never know. The in the National League in particular, that last wild card team has gone pretty far every single year that they've done it. So who knows? Yeah. We will see. But Jesse, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to pop on, talk prospects, talk wild card race, and I'll see you at the ballpark next week.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.